Hello, everybody. Welcome back to AGX Media. Today's interview is with Bill Murphy of GATA, the organization committed to exposing precious metals price manipulation in silver and gold. Also a regular guest on the show. Very excited to have you back, Bill. But of course, guys, if this is your first time joining us, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel, as well as check out agxpay.com to learn how the power of modern silver money can help you gain financial freedom. Bill, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
All right, now let's dive right into it. Recently, there was news from JP Morgan where they were fined close to $1 billion for precious metals price manipulation. I've got to ask, did you feel vindicated after years of trying to expose this? And does this give you hope that things will change moving forwards?
Yes and no. Yes, and the fact is it's so obvious, and we can get into some of that as we go on here, but they fined JP Morgan $920 million. The Justice Department called JP Morgan and the press a criminal enterprise, and all their traders are getting big bonuses for Christmas. And it just goes on and on and on. And it's one of the biggest scandals in financial market history. They're going to blow up, and then yes, it's going to be a big deal. But in the meantime, there's very few in the press that will give GATA covers like yourself, thank you, to expose this thing. And it's getting worse. This past week was the worst I've ever seen in terms of the fundamentals of the market and what the bad guys did. So we're very upbeat about what we do. We've got great people around us. It's going to be a big deal someday, but it's the major factor in the market right now.
Absolutely. So it almost feels kind of like a little bit of a slap on the wrist for them if they're still going at it, hey?
Yeah, it's always talk about spoofing all the time, and I understand, and that's a big deal. It's very important. But the big deal is the Fed and the Treasury and the bullion banks and the central banks rigging the gold and silver market. That's the big deal, and what they've been doing it for many decades, and the prices have gone up and down. And they recently, which we can get into if you like, just went berserk this past week with the dollar falling apart. It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I mean, all the other fundamentals couldn't be more bullish right now for gold and silver.
Absolutely. So what do you think then is it going to take for us to see real change?
Well, in my opinion, and it gets a little complicated, that it has to do with the bad guys, the Gold Cartel, as I call it, which is the group I mentioned earlier, running out of enough physical gold and silver to carry on the antics like they just did this week, which they were able to mobilize enough to attack. And for me, it was obvious, not obvious, but scared me a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that some really smart people in our camp were all talking about a December delivery problem on the COMEX, which is where they buy and sell gold and you can, make or take delivery. And they were talking about a big problem where there might be defaults and they're going to go after and wipe out the COMEX. And I said, uh-oh, this scared me because this is a few weeks ago of what they do. And sure enough, this past week, plus they just went after gold and silver with all the fundamentals getting more bullish and destroyed it. They had gold down at 1770 with a big rally today. Silver was slaughtered back to a 21 and change number. And after being priced so low for so long, and it was really something. Today we finally got a good comeback. The December delivery thing is now underway, so they got that behind them. But I think there's a physical shortage, which started in gold a year ago May, when gold was, I don't know, 1280, 1290, something like that. And then silver about 3 or 4 months ago, and gold went up to above 2,000. Almost 2,100. Silver got close to 30, and then they've gone into attack mode for 4 months and kept things totally in check. And I'm hoping that this is the beginning of the end of this checking process.
Absolutely. I mean, I know COVID definitely threw a wrench into things as well. We saw the price earlier on in the year absolutely skyrocket. But let me ask you this. They're in attack mode. They're attacking this price. What's their motive here? If they actually hold this gold and the silver, wouldn't it be in their best interest to have the price rise? What's the motive?
Well, it's a great question. It's the same motive that they've had since they fixed gold, many decades ago. That the gold is looked at. It's a barometer of U.S. financial market health. As Paul Volcker, former Fed chairman, said, Gold goes up is bad, gold goes down is good. Like it or not, when the gold price is exploding, the financial arena and people say, what's wrong? And it affects interest rates, it affects the dollar, and they just got into doing it. It's like a habit. It's like a bad habit that they don't want to give up. They're going to be forced to give it up, but they've been doing this for so long, and then ripping off speculators on the COMEX, what they've done for silver for, 10, 15, 20 years.
Absolutely. So, so let me ask you this then. So we know these metals are manipulated. There's no speculating on it. As we mentioned at the beginning of the call, JP Morgan just got fined $900 million for that. So if, given the fact that the metals are in fact manipulated, what would you say to somebody who might ask, what's the point of investing in these metals if they're so manipulated?
Very good question. And of course, what's going on late is a nightmare. You've got stock markets, which makes no sense to me. I don't get it, making all-time highs. You got Bitcoin. God bless the people that invested in it. I salute them. Going bananas, going to all-time highs. And gold and silver get crushed with the dollar crashing. People saying, why should I invest in gold and silver? And this is exactly what the bad guys, as I call them, want to create, is that kind of notion. The most underpriced assets in the world right now because of this are gold and silver, and they're going to explode if I'm correct about this overall shortage of physical supply, that they're going to run out of enough of it to meet demand. And they can maneuver, they can attack, and this last week was something else. I didn't expect that to do it to that degree. But they're going to lose, and people are going to want to be in gold and silver for the fundamental reasons why people get into it. I mean, besides the dollar collapsing, all the debt in the United States, for example, the money that's been printed, deficits, I mean, they're just going bonkers, and it's just going to get worse. And people are going to turn to gold and silver, and the gold cartel, as I call it, will not be able to stop the demand forces, and they're going to explode. So it's the place to be right now, especially when all these other assets have gone like this, and they sunk gold and silver.
Absolutely. I think that's a really sound piece of advice that hopefully our viewers can take to heart, your insight. Now, given this, like you said, we're getting crushed right now. Where do you think gold and silver should be in your eyes? Like,
well, I'm prejudiced. I mean, so probably not a good one to ask there, but I mean, you could pick a number on the upside, but certainly, I don't know, gold should be 500, $1,000 higher. I've been saying for years and have not been correct on this yet at all. Silver's going to $100 an ounce. I mean, what the heck, it was $50 40 years ago. 10 years ago, was it $50 an ounce? It's half price. I mean, what other assets in the world have acted as poorly as that? It's because part of it's because of this rigging and what they've done and how they've affected the agenda. I think that's in a process of ending, and I think the last hurrah, the bad guys in a major way was accomplished this past week.
Fair enough. So what work is GATA presently working on right now? What are you guys' next steps?
Well, God bless him. My colleague Chris Powell does a great job all the time contacting the press and talking to people and raising money and trying to for us and trying to get in front of people. We used to go to a lot of conferences, but one, they've obviously been canceled to do it in person. We had to do the New Orleans conference over video, but other conference leaders, and I won't get into their names, don't want us to be around anymore because they've fallen into the same prey as other people. God is not allowed to be discussed. Chris Powell, my colleague, said they'd rather let people talk about our nuclear secrets than what the Fed and the Treasury and the government's doing in the gold market. It's that outrageous that they can't even allow he said, she said, like you would in normal markets. But it's probably the most important thing to understand about the gold and silver markets, and that it will blow up. So it's not a reason to be discouraged. We are behind right now versus other assets, but if I'm correct, and as we just discussed, that's going to change.
Absolutely. And I mean, investing is really, if you're a long-term investor, it's a game of patience, right? So I couldn't agree more. I think now is probably a great time to get in if you're not already holding. That's all we have for today, Bill. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a fantastic holiday season.
Well, thanks for thinking of me, and I'd love to come on back if these prices start to explode. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.